Have y'all seen those videos the last couple of days that are like, Elon Musk is running out of money. He's in financial trouble. These videos.
I tried to tell y'all that Elon was going broke, and that's the reason why he was distancing himself from Doge. And what a lot of people can't seem to comprehend is that Elon doesn't have any cash. Elon's value is based in the price of this stock.
Right. I said something similar in my video a few days ago about how do you defeat Elon Musk? Well, his wealth is tied to the valuation of his two companies, Tesla and SpaceX. Tesla, a publicly traded company, the value there is tied to the stock price, which is currently plummeting more and more every day, which is going to be bad news for him because his loans that he took out for Twitter are secured with his Tesla stock. So that's not a good scene for him. But it's not just Tesla that's hurting. And I didn't really understand this. So SpaceX, is a privately owned company, so they don't have to disclose as much. It's estimated that Musk owns somewhere between 42 and 50% of SpaceX. And I saw this video yesterday. I'm going to share a little bit of it, and then I will tag the creator so you can go watch his full videos.
Elon has just completely fucked the future of SpaceX and committed a crime in the process. Okay, found a primary source. So Elon falsely charged Carlos Slim, one of the world's most powerful telecom magnates, of having a relationship with organized crime. That's libel. That's a crime for Elon to do that. The president of Mexico came out and said, actually, this guy has basically a spotless reputation. There are no investigations into him or any of his companies. There are no accusations. There's no evidence at all to suggest that he has any kind of relationship with organized crime. Mexican news is reporting that Carlos then announced that he's pulling $29 billion out of current and future contracts with Starlink and SpaceX.
Okay, so he goes into a lot more detail about how basically Carlos is now, because he's pissed off because Musk libeled him, he is pulling $7 billion out of SpaceX right now, and $22 billion of funds he has promised for the future are now going to be going to the Chinese competitor of SpaceX. Yeah, he done fucked himself over. He fucked SpaceX over. Basically, SpaceX's estimated annual intake is about $10 billion. So to immediately lose $7 billion, you're in big trouble. Not to mention $22 billion in future investment that has just gone out the window and has gone to your competitor. And it's worse than that. CJ made a follow-up video. I don't really understand how valuation of private companies works, but CJ was explaining, I knew that Tesla and SpaceX were incredibly overvalued. A lot of it having to do with the results of the election. The fact that many federal investigations against Musk and against Tesla and SpaceX just went, they just went poof. And also the presumption in the market and from private investors that his companies were going to benefit from, guess what? A conflict of interest, his proximity to the regime, and now his, being cemented at the head of the regime was going to garner both of those companies significant government contracts. I said in a previous video, we already know that both Tesla and SpaceX would not be solvent. They would not exist today if it were not for billions in taxpayer dollars given to them in grants and low interest loans. And federal policy and regulation that made sure that other industries had to funnel money into Tesla. So we know that both of these companies are overvalued. We know that Musk's wealth is overvalued, but it's worse than that. Hang on, CJ talks about it. I'll share a little bit.
This is the part that the Elon stans don't understand. SpaceX is worth $350 billion on a $10 billion revenue, making it a 35x multiple. Okay, so if they're bringing in $10 billion, and they're not even breaking even on that, and they're saying multiply it by 35, that's how much the company is worth.
Overblown.
Okay. They were making 10 billion, they just lost 7. Okay, so what's it worth now? What's he worth now? Very little.
So right after I saw that video from CJ this morning, I saw a news article. Someone reshared it on Blue Sky. I try not to read legacy media, but it's important to understand that there is still journalism being done by those folks. And this article comes out of CNN. Again, I understand that CNN is run basically by a Republican billionaire, and I understand that that means a significant amount of their reporting skews to the right. So when they have a piece that is not only factual, but critical of this regime, then I'm going to read it. Because I think, what has that journalist had to overcome to get the editors and the bosses to let them publish that? But anyway, this morning, we found out that this is published at 10:19 this morning, Tuesday, February 25th, 2025, by Chris Isidore from CNN. Musk's Starlink, that's owned by SpaceX, gets an FAA contract. Whoa, another big government contract right after he lost Carlos's $7 billion and $22 billion future dollars. Suddenly he gets a big, cushy government contract today, raising new conflict of interest concerns. Remember, Donald Trump said that Elon Musk can, on his own, self-evaluate whether or not he has a conflict of interest. Sounds a lot like how SCOTUS polices themselves and there's no oversight. Musk can just he can decide for himself whether he has a conflict of interest. So when his company is suddenly facing a rapid devaluation, when he's lost massive contracts, lost a huge amount of influx of cash, what happens? Mere days later, suddenly he gets a big FAA contract. I'll read you just a little bit of the article. If you want to read the whole thing, it's on CNN's website. The Federal Aviation Administration has agreed, they got the screws put to them, to use SpaceX's Starlink internet system to upgrade the information technology networks it uses to manage U.S. airspace. Right, so I'd heard folks, especially on Blue Sky, talking about like all of these plane crashes and these issues with the FAA and all of these massive cuts that Doge was making to the FAA, that was all leading towards something like this. So now Starlink is going to be used to manage U.S. airspace. This, reading again, raises new concerns about conflicts of interest for CEO Elon Musk in one of his other roles, that of recommending funding cuts to federal agencies, including the FAA. The size of this contract was not immediately reported. I have still not seen the numbers on this. I've been looking online. SpaceX is a privately held space technology company, greatly dependent on federal contracts, primarily from NASA. And we saw Musk was going for NASA. We saw him angry tweeting about astronauts just a couple days ago. This contract comes while Musk is leading efforts to make deep cuts in the federal government spending, including staffing cuts to the FAA. And critics are raising questions about conflicts of interest over his role overseeing government agencies that are supposed to be regulating his business. So the FAA, in a post on Twitter last night, because I guess that's how we get all of our government information relayed to us now, the FAA said that it was going to be, it already is, testing a Starlink terminal at Atlantic City, New Jersey, and two what it calls non-safety critical sites in Alaska. The plan is to roll out Starlink at 4,000 locations over the next 12 to 18 months. The current FAA system needs an upgrade, right? And that's one of the things this article goes on to explain. The contract they had was with Verizon, and they already had a contract for Verizon to upgrade the technology and improve the FAA system. However, Musk said the Verizon system is not working and it's putting air travelers at serious risk. Weird that we've had an uptick in crashes and near misses, near crashes, just when Musk wants to say that the system that was in place that they had planned on upgrading is not good enough and they need to use his proprietary technology, which directly benefits him, his pocketbook, his valuation of his wealth. So how the fuck is this not a conflict of interest? We all know that it is. I said in another video that we need to name things accurately. We need to say that Maha is eugenics. We need to say that this is corruption. This is unethical. There is nothing about Doge that is about increasing government efficiency. Musk was in significant legal and financial trouble before the election. Everything that Doge is doing is about shutting down the investigations against him, punishing the departments that were investigating him, and securing millions, billions in taxpayer money to keep his wealth tremendously inflated and keep his companies going. I don't know how to communicate this to conservatives who are living in la la land and believing whatever Musk tweets. But they are so blatantly out and proud with the corruption. You don't have to be a lawyer or a political analyst to understand how transparently unethical this all is, which is why it is so important for us to be strategic about creating maximum economic impact, withholding our dollars from the economy. But we also need to sound the alarm for every one of these contracts, for every conflict of interest. It's clear as day what they're doing, and we need to call it out.